Welcome to this edition of Platform. I am Muhammad Kudu Abubakar. Experts say the coronavirus pandemic may have prompted the largest educational disruptions in history. And this is estimated to have affected more than 1 billion students across the world. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who stated this, also noted that in mid-July 2020, schools were closed in more than 160 countries, including Nigeria, affecting more than 1 billion students. The UN Secretary General observed that although schooling crisis existed long before the pandemic, but COVID-19 has amplified it to what he described as a generational catastrophe. This development prompted the United Nations to launch a new global policy brief on education and COVID-19. As the West African Examinations Council, WAEC, the Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board, JAMB, and other examination bodies released their timetables for students in exit classes across Nigeria, public and private secondary schools have reopened to prepare their exit class students for the scheduled examinations. What are the rules and guidelines for this phase of school and student session? Following the launch by the United Nations, has Nigeria adopted its version of policy brief on education and COVID-19? What are the details of Nigeria's policy brief on education and COVID-19? This is our focus on Platform with Honorable Chukwuemeka Nwajuba, Nigeria's Minister of State for Education, a politician and lawyer who was a member of the House of Representatives and had also served as the chairman of the board, Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TED Fund. Honorable Chukwuemeka Nwajuba, Minister of State for Education, welcome to Platform.
Good afternoon and welcome, fellow Nigerians. Thank you very much for having me.
As usual, we have one of our panelists, Ruth Agwele, who is with the NTA Current Affairs Unit and also doubles as assistant producer of this program.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Chukwuemeka Nwajuba, welcome once again. Before we go to the details of the UN's policy brief on education and COVID-19, with respect to Nigeria, let's have a look at globally. What was the UN trying to say? Or was it the WHO that came up with that policy document?
Thank you very much. In truth, whether you're speaking of the WHO or you're speaking of the UN, you're actually talking about one body. But what the UN did and what this document speaks to is addressing about 1 billion children who's students who are out of school at the moment. Nearly all the countries in the world are affected by this pandemic. But it has had the singular effect of shutting down economies, shutting down education institutions. And around the world, this problem is repeated in the same, almost in the same sequence. So parents are afraid, governments are afraid. Everybody is afraid of using these children as vehicles to infect or completely multiply the infection rates. And it's a huge problem because children, by their nature and the nature of the disease, from what we've come to know, are not as heavy sufferers. They are asymptomatic carriers and therefore may actually exacerbate the rate of the disease, how the disease works. So schools were shut down from as way back as March, especially in Nigeria. And for this 4 or 5 months, everybody's been at home. So we've had interactions with the United Nations, all the countries, all the ministers we met. We've had virtual meetings where we've agreed on a number of measures to take. So the document begins to speak to the measures that have been taken. One, to address the problem of the disease. It starts with explaining what our challenge is, and then goes on to say what we have done in order to mitigate some of it, and what steps should be taken, recognizing that this may not necessarily be something that goes away tomorrow morning. So I'll take those, speak to the document in those batches. First is, what is the nature of the problem? Schools, by their nature, are interactive. People have a physical engagement. They come together, and it transcends generations. Some people, teachers are older, those who manage may be even older than teachers, and then you have people who work with them. However, those are not all in the same generation. So each group reacts to this disease differently. They react to it in such a way that most people may not accommodate one another at the same time. So there's an interaction process in a classroom. Now, a teacher who is older and has underlying conditions will not necessarily be in a position to know that his child, the child that is in front of him, may be an asymptomatic carrier, and in his care of this child, he just takes on the disease, and then he goes home, and then he may reinfect his own. This child may also come to school not knowing that there is a burden somewhere, and then takes this disease and then goes home to translate it to his or her parents, as the case may be. So it's a multiple, the school system is an ecosystem that revolves, that rules almost the rest of the world. And therefore, United Nations identifying this, said it was good, it's a proper thing to shut down classes, physical classes. Now, how do you react? If schools, learning is the whole purpose of coming to school. So we want to have learning before we measure outcomes, because eventually when we get to these testings, it's about learning outcomes. So outcomes, you've now stopped access. How can we deliver access to learning whilst not accommodating them physically? And that's exactly what the document begins to address. The online classes, the tools that you need, how the United Nations, through UNESCO, through UNICEF, are assisting all the agencies of government. We've met as ministers, like I told you, and we agreed that some of the modules that had been in the works before should be now escalated around everybody. So we take what is available at the federal level and we cascade them to all the regions in the country, which is more or less the guidance every country needs. And then what teachers need to do, what parents need to do, what their roles are. Because when we take knowledge and say we're now delivering it online, it is no longer a teacher's responsibility to supervise the actual learning and to check whether it's been imbibed. However, that role you devolve now to parents because we are transmitting online. But the teacher has taught, the teacher has uploaded what they think is knowledge capital, and everybody is now then to cascade this into how the children then assimilate them at home. Now, that document governs or suggests is a governance structure that says this is how this should be done, and that's what we've been doing. So what we have done, and let me not just say the United Nations document, it just didn't appear yesterday. It's been informed over time. The United Nations be talking with all these agencies.
So how did Nigeria domesticate that, if you like?
This is what you find in the guidelines we've issued. We try to issue this as soon as almost all the matters around it have been codified. The document now is about how do we recommend to our own subnationals to them partner. For instance, in Nigeria today, we're one of the countries that are going to be participating in WAEC. There are 19,519 centers around Nigeria. Only 104 of them are federal government colleges. The rest belong to private institutions and
public schools.
State institutions. Now, in order to bring some uniformity, we issued those guidelines. Those guidelines are disseminated from, we just distilled some of the key actions from what the WHO had recommended, which is in the UN document, which is as agreed by UNESCO and UNICEF, and distilled them into a working summary that we can then recommend to all the institutions around Nigeria, which is what they have done. Because I just finished a webinar now, a Zoom meeting with all the commissioners in the states just this morning to find out from them what exactly is going on in the states. What's the compliance level with our guidelines? We did this on Monday. We've done that from the beginning of the week to monitor and then evaluate what our remedies, what we should do. And that is what contained in the guideline. Key things in the guideline. Every school that needs to reopen, every school that anybody who is learning from home, anyone that needs to go to a learning center will follow 3 different things. One, you're at home for learning online. Please, these are the class requirements. Can you sign on from what is now a knowledge bank with which we've negotiated with the likes of MTN, Airtel, all our network providers, and the international communities, we've uploaded materials for everybody to disseminate to their children. So there's learning material online. We in Nigeria are constrained because I've spoken about this. We are constrained by non-penetration of platforms. We don't have a lot of computer hardware because we don't produce them, and even importing them at this period is also closed. So we can only deal with those who already have. But thankfully, because of the expansion of communication in Nigeria, a lot of people use the open source wares and Android phones, and you can access with that. Even at that, it's still a challenge for many families who, in some cases, an Android phone may be just one and they have multiple children who may need to be learning different things at different times. And then parents also have the challenge of a lot of data that they need to purchase, which is, no matter how subsidized it has become, because really the communication companies have brought down cost of data. They've even given us some web applications that are free, yet it's still a lot of cost to parents. And then we have the challenge of power. Even when you have all of this and all of that, you may not necessarily have fully charged batteries, and because students need to stay on consistently for almost an hour, and sometimes you need to get a child to concentrate at all the time. So whilst you're using your laptops, you're using your iPads, you're using your Android phones, all of that require power, they require data, and parents don't have all of that money and all of that at the same time. Even when people have all of it, do not have all of it, we are still challenged even further, because if you talk about the UN document laments the widening of the gap between those who already were disconnected with what we call those are the fringes of the education structure, those who already do not have enough. Now they are even widened. That gap is even widened because they are also the people who have no power. They are the same people who have no platforms to access it and all of that. So the challenge of having parents do all of that and help us, we try to transmit by radio, by terrestrial TV. Some of our programs are carried on your network graciously by NTA. So but you have only one channel for that. And so there are so many ways we've tried to, and then we've worked with state governors who, using their own sub-channels and terrestrial channels, have helped Abia State TV, Ogun State TV, Zamfara State TV. Around the country, governors have responded very well. They've tried to do the most they can. But we're still challenged because everything is not uhuru.
So if parents are still challenged, what is the federal government thinking, and the state government, of course, in collaboration with the state government, are they thinking of coming up with some palliatives for parents to kind of augment all these challenges you have enumerated?
Right now, when you talk about palliating anything, you're trying to help with augmenting how that can be achieved. We think that first things first. We may not necessarily be trying to give parents anything, but what we've tried to do is discuss with communications companies about reducing the cost, trying to make sure that everybody has access to. In Lagos State, for instance, they distributed radios, 5,000 radios. So governments are being proactive in this respect. So they're giving out things to help. Many state governors are doing a lot with regard to that. And I've spoken with I met with the governors yesterday on the NGF, the Nigerian Governors Forum, and when I thanked them also for the much they've done, and we believe that they will try to do some more.
Well, Minister, the radio aspect of it, there have been speculations that for learning to be more effective, there need to be visual teaching. So a lot of people are not really going with the radio stuff. Is there any other thing, alternative, more of the visual learning?
Yes.
Because if we look at it, people in the rural areas are being left out.
Yes, this is my case exactly, because we've talked about having TV viewing centers where they can come, all children, but then you're still bringing them to a classroom environment. Yes. Each of the steps you take.
What about collaborations with TV stations?
Yes, but that's exactly what we're saying, because the local TV stations, I've mentioned state TVs who have gone ahead to transmit, but you still need to have a TV to watch what even the local TV station is doing. And then How do we aggregate children? There are 8,800 and something wards in Nigeria. And I can tell you, with 65,000 primary schools that belong to government and 35,000 others that belong to private institutions, how do we get children at that level, first 6 years, to be able to access all of their own classes? By the time, you can see I'm not laying a lot of emphasis on those in tertiary institutions, because those at the tertiary institution already
they can have
a modicum of our biggest challenge is with accessing those who are at the fringe of society, because primary school children in urban areas belong, there are about 20% of them who are not urban poor, and they have multiple of everything. So really, they're not our biggest challenge. Our biggest challenge are those at the fringes.
At the fringes, yes.
And that's where I've been concentrating this effort. How would we get, that's what the radio came to abridge. It's better that we just don't let them forget about schooling completely. The federal government has spent a lot of money to bring down the number of out-of-school children. And this COVID thing just came in at the wrong time and immediately interrupted all the programs, because we had emirs. I met with the emir of, we had this group work, everybody agreeing on what needs to be done. When I was in Adamawa, we met with the governor, 105 districts, everybody agreeing on what needs to be done to make sure that every district is going to have this number of children in school. We've done all of this work. Government had taken a loan in 2016. When I joined the ministry, I found out that Malam Adamadamu had done a comprehensive ministerial policy guideline around this, and which we were trying to execute, just to bring this pam. And we were just in the middle of it, like going from Bauchi to
we'll come back to those documents post-COVID-19, but let's look at the immediate issues. In the last few days, you've been going around the federal government colleges to ascertain the level of their compliance to the rules, the guidelines on COVID-19, and of course the need for those in exit classes will be able to sit for their various exams. Tell us your assessment.
Thank you. We took the position that these exams, we will not do them, because we didn't want to put the children at risk. So, in order to be able to even attempt to work with WAEC on this, we then produced a set of guidelines. So we published and sent this to all of the institutions. So my going around this week is being to make sure that all of that we demanded of them before our children can come in is in place. We want to see people where they wash their hands. We want to see sanitary conditions. We want to know that children are coming with their masks. We want to know that you've provided for your teachers to have their own masks. We want to see that there's social distance in the classes. These days, you can't do any giraffe, because this whole thing is all expanded. Everything is, that's what we went to check, because those are the things contained in the guidelines that I said we had distilled from the UN document, the WHO document, which we translated into our own guiding principle here and made it, domesticated it, and then moved this to all our subnationals and everybody who is partnering in the ecosystem. And then I just went to just confirm that those, when I came to Kwali, if there are things that I felt that weren't proper, maybe the condition of the dormitories, or we immediately started work on them.
How consistent will this monitoring and evaluation continue? Because the exams will continue
to tell us his assessment. Let him tell us.
Okay.
Now, that's exactly where I am, because having gone around, I made a few observations, you're right, because the Ministry of Environment had gone ahead of us, ahead of the weekend, to go and fumigate the schools. So in some places, you come to a place where the dead objects from the fumigation hadn't all been cleared out. I say, well, we can't use it until it's cleared out. You come to some places where the rain before the day had taken away. So no, we can't use it until it's cleared out. So all of those are a continuing effort. However, even as we speak, directors of what we call in the department in the Federal Ministry of Education, QS, which is the Quality Assurance Department. The directors in that QS department are in all the states as we speak, doing the same work that everybody saw me jumping from one school to the other in the last 2 days. I think because we think around the country, you will see today. The NUT, Clever, they were online, going around also seeing what the conditions are. On Monday, I started the Commissioner of Education in Lagos, Madam Falashade. She was going around with her own British. She will show us what these people are before the schools open. So everybody is interested. The good thing about schools, and let me elaborate, is the fun part of being Minister of Education, or serving in the Ministry of Education, is that you're serving in a ministry where others probably know more than you. Parents don't want their children infected by anything. They don't care what the minister thinks. They don't want their own children getting hot. They are as interested in their children as you are. So they go there, and even they think things are not right. They are the ones who will first tell you something is not right here.
But children will be children. You agree with that? And from your interactions with some of the principals, what kind of measures have these schools put in place, aside the whole protective, to ensure that the children adhere strictly? Because it might be normal for the first 1-2 weeks. Consistency is very key.
I will tell you that one of the things I was surprised about is that children are actually very informed. Luckily for us, we are testing this whole business with the exit classes. These are the girls and guys, boys and girls who are in class 6 of SS. And I found out, I went to the dormitories and I had this, I went to Kwali, and in the dormitory I had one Emmanuel, I had another person, Isaiah, I had another Peter. I said, how come all of you are just Peter, Isaac, and Roy? He said, because we are discussing this. So they are actually way ahead. They know. But I agree with you.
The ones in SS3.
Yeah, because
also resumed.
Yeah, but you see, children will still be children, even with all their knowledge. We also observed that they want to play. They want to be at how they are as children. I'm only I'm only happy with the fact that we've made all the provisions that we need to make. We can't stop children from there, but because we've provided, I went, for instance, to check sick bays. I wanted to know what is our reaction time in case we have a problem. So those are the key things. In fact, in my office, before I left for this program, was a principal. And one of the key things, because I got an information that something untoward was happening in his school, and I sent it to the PAMSEC. The PAMSEC probably didn't sleep last night, tried to bring them, and by this morning he was already in the office waiting. He wanted to clear the air, that he didn't charge any such money, he didn't do any fumigation, he didn't do this. So I said, go put it in writing. Anything we hear, is the response time less than 24 hours, less than how many like you pointed out, human beings will be human beings. Kids will be kids. Our children will continue to be children, but we must be able to react and ameliorate the situation as soon as it happens.
But you see, what we are observing or experiencing now in the next few weeks is just the exit classes. So what plans and strategies are we adopting for the larger students, that if indeed we're thinking of opening the whole schools, or rather reabsorbing everybody? That's the beauty of what is going on now, and one of the reasons we thank the president for allowing the schools to participate. We are not magicians at the ministry. We are human beings, so we need to learn. We need to hear. I would hate to say that these are our experimental classes, but they are. In actual fact, from how they react and how things work out in the next few weeks, that will inform how we take decisions going forward. Because now, many of the things we are thinking about, we can now know whether they actually work. Things that we are planning, we can now know and situate them properly. What the challenges of this period would be will inform how we react as we go along. Because right now, since WAEC is going on, everybody is now comfortable. That NAPTEB immediately produce their own. So we're asking everybody who may not have had the opportunity to register WAEC, or probably not as prepared as they ought to have been, to now register for NAPTEB. And NAPTEB, we are asking NAPTEB to remain open until almost the end of September, so that people will have enough accommodation to register for the National Business and Technical Education Board, because those certifications can also take you to the university. We've also asked NECO to please stay online and stay, so that people who have not registered for NECO will also be able to register for NECO ahead. So we want to be as informed. We are Ministry of Education, so we are constantly being educated
by even the way our people react to even those things we've rolled out. So we're going to be learning from them. We're nothing is cast in stone. We'll see what works and what does not work. Then we can then step that up as we go ahead.
And you come up with a strategy.
Yeah.
Before you come up with that strategy, your mandates and powers appear to be limited to the federal government colleges. And I know that there are multitudes of secondary schools, both private and public. How do we begin to monitor their state of preparedness, state of compliance, and the general well-being of their students?
Well, you see, again, I say Nigeria is one country. It's a united country of many parts. And that's the principle around it. So the constitution is clear that education is in the concurrent legislative list. What that gives us is that whatever anything that is federal is actually deemed as more of in hierarchy higher. But we need to carry the subnationals along in the real sense of carrying them along. We don't make these decisions unilaterally or out of whims of caprices. We don't do that. We just bring everybody on board. That's why this interaction today, the Commission of Education in Kano has nearly 400 wards, but with 520 secondary schools doing this exam. In Kano State alone. He's reporting real time today. I just spoke with the commission. Yesterday, after speaking with the governors. Today, I'm engaged with the commissioners. So he's going around as we speak. He has not gone back to Kano. He's maybe in Minjibri or somewhere now, trying to just go to each of the secondary schools to confirm the status of what we gave them using the same guidelines, because the guidelines were also discussed such that that governance structure exists. The Ministry of Education is overseeing, but then it is not the only seer. It just helps everybody see the same thing, the same way, using the same guidelines, as like I've told you, distilled from an international work document, which everybody has actually agreed as part of it. But then that does not mean that those are cast in stone. It means we will keep reacting as we get information from the field saying this is not working as much. If you want girls to wear hijab or wear a scarf, it's not working at the moment. Can we change that to not wear it or not wear it? So we make those adjustments. Just as the nuances of the subjective issues.
Have there been any special attention given to the schools that are within the IDPs or centers within IDPs?
Yeah, what we've done is wherever they've registered for these exams, we've asked those centers where they register for the exams to actually stay in compliance, so I can take them out of the place where they don't react. In fact, today, the Commissioner of Education in Kaduna State, Alhaji Ismail, was asking specifically that the Kaduna State government is discussing an idea around taking everybody into a different places where they can put them in dormitories and make sure that all of them are in one place. And we'll tolerate that. We say, well, that's exactly what I was saying. So what kind of ideas work? Like I said, we're Ministry of Education, and I understand that education is a lifelong thing. It takes you from the grave to... So you continue to learn. You see, we are all sociological creatures. We become who we are because of the way we are socialized. So if you look at something that is not working now, you say, well, let's make 2 amendments. Let's tweak it here or there.
Are you also putting into consideration classrooms deficit? Because even before this whole advent of COVID-19, where we have to do physical distancing, it may work for the exit classes. But eventually, taking you back to the question Kudu asked, if schools eventually open literally, physical distancing may pose a challenge. Now, part of the strategies you may want to rejig or tweak or whatever you want to do, are you considering classrooms, provision of more classrooms?
Again, that is already in the works. UBEC has just finished a tender process. It's talking with all the suburbs about increasing classes. We're doing new. Some of the ones that we built are coming on stream. But then we're also going to be looking at a post-COVID or if a working with COVID arrangement, which is, for instance, to stagger classes. We're going to try to, use all the classes that are available now and do morning classes and then do afternoon classes. So in which case, if you had 500 students, 250 would use the same facility in the morning and 250 use it in the afternoon. Those are, like I said, as things come back from the field, we know where those are useful. There are classes we've had around the country which are not in use. We've seen a lot of empty classes, in some area overcrowded, in some areas underused. So we're going to make all those adjustments along with what the suburbs are doing. In Imo State, for instance, the governor has just launched a program to build new classes, massive build accommodation, because Imo still remains one of our highest turnout of students every year. It just keeps increasing. So he's challenged with even increasing more classes. I just saw the awards that they've just started issuing new classes. So people are doing new classes. There are some places where they're not, but we can then stagger them, and we are willing to work and make those kind of accommodations with them.
Now let's look at the universities. When are they likely going to reopen? What directives are you giving the National University Commission, for example?
Well, positively, we are working with the universities. The universities, as are all of our tertiary institutions, not just the universities, the polytechnics, the colleges of education, they are going to all come on stream very soon. The Honorable Minister of Education traveled out briefly, and he in his company was the executive secretary of the NUC. So they are back now, but they're being held to rules until next week. So next week, when we will rejig the entire system, they will come with the programs all the programs we've worked out, because private universities have written us requesting that they be allowed to open ahead of public institutions. I've gotten correspondence with almost advice chancellors requesting that maybe we should allow their own exit classes as well. The same way we're doing with secondary schools. So we're also working on that. We've also gotten a lot of entreaties from universities who want us to resolve the issues with ASUU before we can call, because the private universities want to take advantage of them not being ASUU prone to then move ahead and run off
and finish the academic
which will completely destroy the public school system. Because what will happen is Nigerians are, like I said, we all are sociological creatures. Everybody would
they're thinking of attracting more students.
Exactly. So they just will decimate the public tertiary institutions.
So what are you telling the private university? What are you telling the NUC?
No, the private universities are well within their. It's a very good proposition to open, and we think that is a very good idea. But you see, NUC will need to do there's a universities commission. His job is to do this appraisal and bring to me. And when they do that, like I told you, Professor Rashid just returned. And once he's done with it, I'm sure he's talking with his people, because I also talk with a few of his own directors. They're always exploring. They will give us an update on that. And we will take the same advisory from MBBTE and NCCE, the National Commission for Colleges of Education. We'll take advisories from all of them. And we'll look at this, because all of these, I will situate it when we get to the PTF talks and explain to the Presidential Task Force that, you see, this gamut, this is what it will mean. If you go left, this is what it will mean. If we go right, this is what it will mean. If you open this university system at all, you have opened the country, because that is the total lockdown. They are the children who go to schools. They are the university children. People in universities are not kids. They're not children.
But some of them are already agitated, like the National Association of Polytechnic Students. They've even given the federal government 14 days ultimatum. There was a protest in Oyo State a few days ago. Is that a reaction to part of what they're requesting? Because students just want to go back to school.
We know that. That's what I'm saying. I said
they're not thinking of the exit classes.
Yeah, I know. I'm just telling you that
let's hear from him. What deadline are you giving the NUC so that we will now extrapolate when
I can't give the NUC a deadline on air. I just told you that my job at the ministry is to await their input, because they will need to inform us technically as to what it is. That technical input that we can then take, because it's not just a political decision alone. It's not. There are economic decisions around it. There are issues. mentioned ASUU. We've just pleaded with ASUU. Officially, ASUU should call off their strike, really, because even the period they gave for the strike has expired, because it's since March. I mean, even if the schools were even in session, by now the strike would have gone. But even the issues that they came on strike for have all been more or less resolved, because IPPS has now paid all their teachers. Any teacher that is now, any lecturer who is
paid
not,
up to what? Because
up to when all that lecturers have been paid, because all IPPS,
there are allegations that the IPPS have not paid them only up to June.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So
that means others haven't gotten July salary. I'm not sure if I've gotten July salary either, because IPPS pays us as well, we as ministers. So I'm not sure whether I've gotten July's salary. So maybe if they've not gotten July's salary, it may be because of, it has nothing to do with the same issues that were, but they all have been paid from this was a contention since February, when they said they had a different platform to be paid. But we said, let's use the one that everybody else is being paid on. And when this COVID thing caught us up, we were forced to find a way to pay them, because we couldn't, it was unconscionable. The president didn't feel it was the right thing to continue to say because they are on strike, nobody was going to pay them. So the president said, please just get their account numbers and move it into the IPPS. And luckily, the vice chancellors reached out to all their members, got the BVN, and the BVN were now given to the AGF. And AGF said, well, if you have given me this BVN, I can migrate them to IPPS. And he did, and he paid them. So everybody is on the same page. There's no quarrel anymore.
So ASUU now is on IPPS officially?
Not officially, but in effect. Because IPPS does not mean anything. IPPS is a name of a platform with which you pay anybody. Once you have my BVN, you have my IPPS, because IPPS is information of the personnel. It's an information on personnel.
So let's use this opportunity to really interrogate the issues between government and ASUU. What are the, if you like, contending issues now that are yet to be resolved?
Okay.
And then what issues have been resolved?
Okay, you see, ASUU is a fantastic organization. You need to understand a lot of work that's been done in the Nigerian education system is a result of all the agitations of ASUU. You can't take it away from them. What's their central request at the moment deals with the 2009 agreement, things that have not been met, some of the promises government made. Government is not even in a position to fulfill half of them, because the government promised in 2009, when oil was selling for $150 a barrel, that they would put $1 trillion over 5 years. Immediately we got into power. Oil came to about 30. Now it's selling for 2 kobo. I'm not sure how much. Nobody even now is just going yo-yo.
$45 now.
So in fact, I heard some people were offered premium to buy and they refused. So what are we going to do? So really, government may have those good intentions at the time, or may have thought so, or may. But government started out. It took a while for some of the things government offered to actually get in. Monies were taken in 2010 by the Goodluck administration, took money from TED Fund, created a huge hole in the accounts of TED Fund, for which when we came into power, the present executive secretary of TED Fund was removed from office because there was a big 200 billion naira hole. When government realized that actually he didn't take the money, it wasn't anybody's money, it was actually that the government at the time simply debited that account and took it into university administration directly because they had promised ASUU. Well, government is a continuum. It's fair to where there's no need punishing the man for something he didn't do, so they brought him back to finish his tenure. So people now started complaining, can this government keep go, yo-yo? I said, well, government, the president has always told you that he's working for Nigeria. If he realizes that something is wrong in this way, he changes his mind. That's how he works, and that's how government should work. So in actual fact, everything that ASUU requested for in the 2009 agreement is being pursued within the limits of government's revenue and ability. Everything they've asked is legitimate. They've asked for a visitation panel to the universities. The federal government, the president has just approved the visitation panel. But a visitation panel needs gazetting. A minister can't just say, I send a visitation panel. Once the president approves it, even if they are going to work for 2 hours, you must take it to the Attorney General of the Federation, who will then gazette it. And until it's gazetted, from the time we can't move them to the schools because they are not legal at the time. So right now we are in between. The ministry has collected from the president. The ministry has sent over to the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office will do the review, for which they will do the gazetting. So once the gazettes come, we'll send them to the schools. That's the second thing that they asked under the agreement. Then there are two other things under the agreement which had not been done, which was the needs assessment. But some of the needs assessment projects have also not been completed, because even though the money was released, many of the contractors didn't finish the work that they were asked to do. So how would you start a new phase? So it's a continuum, and I'm sure ASUU is not being recalcitrant. What it is that ASUU is also under pressure from their own people who are hearing at the different routes and then trying to make them get an agreement from government. But government only gives an agreement, especially in this case, when we have and see a roadmap to achieving them. And we are as open as when this, some people even think the Minister of Education, Mala Adamodo, is too sympathetic to ASUU. Well, maybe because he also understands that they are all Nigerians trying to work out the same thing.
Well, there's also the lingering issue of remuneration. They are talking about a professor earning very little in comparative terms to
that is not before. That's not that's not the subject of the agreement. Everybody knows that it doesn't really, for me, the amount of money anybody gets in Nigeria in any field is actually not enough for the work they do. But we are working in a country called Nigeria, and we have to work within the parameters of that country. We can't keep saying because people earn XYZ in Botswana, but that's Botswana. In Nigeria, what works here is what works here. We're not using SEFA. In Mali, you can't say because people are earning less in Mali, therefore all of them should move over to Nigeria. We can accommodate them here. That's not the. We work within our economy. There's nobody. I don't even think you're earning enough for the work you do at NTA. I don't think I'm earning enough for the work I'm doing as a minister, because the salary of a minister is less than probably what I was earning when I was in National Assembly. I was surprised myself, but I figured, well, they've asked you to do this one, so you do this one. You're serving the country, unless you are not interested in serving the country. For me, I understand that I'm serving you in the office. That's what I've come to do. Serving the country in any office is serving a fellow human being. And that's service to God.
Okay, let's look at the future of our children. Let's bring it back to the present situation happening. Talking about schools opening. Before the COVID-19, there's this estimated numbers of 10.5 million 5 to 14 years children who are out of school. And then that is about 61% of 6 to 11 years who attend primary school. Now, I know that the ministry is working with the World Bank for support and all of that. If you have to provide protective equipment for these children to continue schooling, if you have to project post-COVID, if schools reopen, there's a lot of funding challenge that will be posed, which is already in the face. What is the ministry looking at?
Well, thank you. You've identified a very key problem around this. We don't have all the resources, obviously, but we must proceed as a country. We can't, because the resources are not available, then shut down the country. That would be unconscionable. When you're building all the hard infrastructure and you don't build the soft infrastructure, you're just, it's like a man who builds a very nice house with foolish children. They will destroy the house. So really, it is important we educate our children. They own this country. They are the base, they are the foundation for which a new Nigeria will emerge. So we are going to have to continue with that. However, we are challenged by this lack of funds and lack of everything, so our job is to manage it. That's what human beings do. Human beings don't progress only when there is abundance of everything. No. What challenges us as human beings is to be creative. A necessity, they say, is the mother of invention. So we have to figure out new ways of doing these things. One, children are going to return to schools at some time. Ahead of that, in this year's 2020 adjusted budget, the Ministry of Trade and Investment has been mandated to purchase from producers around Nigeria things that they produce to stimulate local production. That's what is in this budget. The president just signed last week. So we are on the verge of getting on that. So if it is only face masks that we can produce with nearly 1.5 billion naira made available to them so that every child will go to school, so be it. We'll do the most we can with it. We have money in the budget now in the Ministry of Youth and Sports for retraining and enabling young entrepreneurs to get things working. Once I was with Minister of Sports yesterday, and he's also thinking around it. The same thing we do with the Minister of Women Affairs yesterday as well. She's looking at how they can get women to participate in the economy to produce this. So because if once these women are empowered, that even at those local stages, their children go to school. We are looking at what the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs is doing. She's been on this matter. She wants to know where every child is. She wants to do cash transfers so that people stop holding children back from going to school, because these cash transfers freeze. I'm sure if you hear our story in the north, where when your girl is almost just at 12 years old, either she's brought home to help cook, to help hawk, or get married, because she's valuable at that point. Now, that's because the parents do not have enough. So if you have the system of getting some cash transfer to that parent, it releases the girl for us to take to school. You see, so the president has this all worked out in a way that all of the economy is talking to all of the economy, and we're getting results. All of it is for us as citizens to understand this and buy into it, so that we don't try to bridge each of them. Because if we stem here or staunch the growth here, we will not be helping the system achieve holistically. So this system needs to grow organically and holistically to help everyone take children out of school. Because access to schools are already established, because all the schools, everywhere, there are lots of schools. We are now getting teachers retrained. The Ministry of Communications has also requested for teachers to be trained into the digital cutover as we speak. So everybody is all hands on deck.
What are your expectations from private schools?
Buy-in.
And what strategies will you do to make sure they do?
Okay, I'll give you, for instance, we're encouraging private schools the best way we can. For instance, I just received on my desk last week a letter from a National Association of Private Teachers School Owners, and they sent me 10,700 employees of theirs whom hadn't received salaries since, and I just forwarded that yesterday to the Minister of Trade and Investment, because under the budget, federal government has made a provision to support small and medium-scale enterprises. They don't necessarily need to be an industry. This is a big enterprise. Schools are big enterprise. Yeah. But we don't want to give school proprietors money and they start buying a new car. So we want to address their own problem. Their problem is how to pay their teachers. So we take on that teacher end of it. And as the Central Bank, I spoke with Edward, the Deputy Governor of Central Bank, and I said, please, Oga Edward, you people at Central Bank, can you help me give loans to these people, maybe in 30% of their salary, so they can augment it, so that as schools reopen, before they start collecting money from parents, because schools are not open, they are not getting money from parents. How do they get these human beings? They are Nigerians.
But how would they access this money? That's
what we are trying to put together. That's what this letter I told you I wrote yesterday was to make sure that
we
this
have just 1 minute to go, but it looks like online studies appear to have just come into our system now. Will you, as Minister of State Education, say that this is something that should be expanded moving forward?
Well, the future of education is clear. It has to be a mix of both. It's already with us. Online learning is here to stay. We've now gone ahead, the Ministry of Education, acting through the tertiary education, the ES tertiary education has just told me that he has gone ahead to give approval for what we call the Nigerian Knowledge Bank. The Nigerian Knowledge Bank gives everybody access to online knowledge from anywhere. So we have it all sorted. All the materials from all the universities and institutions will be dematerialized and put on a tertiary education platform, the TICA, the program, and all universities will now get a VLE from where you can teach or test your student anywhere. So we've got
Chukwemeka Nwajuba, Minister of State for Education. Thank you so very much for your insights into all these issues. Certainly, the federal government, President Muhammadu Buhari, is on course.
By the grace of God.
Ruth Aguele, once again, thank you.
Thank you very much.
In the last 50 minutes, we've been talking with Honorable Chukwemeka Nwajuba, Nigeria's Minister of State for Education. He's told us a lot that the federal government is doing, that the Ministry of Education is coordinating, overseeing, supervising, making sure that Nigeria's policy brief on education and COVID-19 is adhered to strictly. That's Platform. I am Muhammad Kudu Abubakar. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.